Well, hello there. I am the Common Senseguy, and today I am with my co-host, which is the Laughing Ogre, Magic Bollox, and today we have a special guest, Coach Redpill. So, very, very happy to have this guest on today. We have a premise of being able to talk about do clones have rights or should clones have rights? I'm going to let Coach Redpill start off with the premise, and then we're going to carry on with the stream.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure being here. And so let's just dive right into it. The key idea seems to be that we are getting to a point where it will be possible to clone human beings. And it is very likely, as a matter of fact, that someplace in potentially China, a human clone already exists. The reason I'm mentioning this is because recently it was announced that chimpanzees had been successfully cloned. The difference between cloning a chimpanzee and a human being is virtually nil. And so it seems that it's in the cards that this will happen in short order. There's also another issue that I'd like to highlight, that artificial wombs there have been great strides in artificial wombs. Recently, they were able to bring to term a sheep. If you all recall, Dolly was the first clone sheep of, how many years ago? Is 17, 18 years or something like that? Or maybe it's a full 20 years. I'm honestly, I've forgotten.
Very close. Yeah, very close to 20.
Yeah. And so, ironically enough, here we are with sheep again, and this time with artificial wombs. It's basically a plastic womb where a sheep's egg was implanted, and it grew to term and was birthed healthy and without any problem. And so a very interesting problem arises, which is as follows. Suppose you clone a human being. Suppose you take the cells of, for instance, John Smith, and John Smith is aware of this. Now, you create a clone of John Smith version 2.0. And just for the sake of argument, suppose you birth him in an artificial uterus, just as this sheep was birthed in an artificial uterus. The question becomes, is John Smith 2.0 the property of John Smith, the property of the scientists who developed him, or the property of a third party, perhaps the people who financed the whole project? Or does John Smith 2.0 have natural and inalienable rights and is an autonomous human being regardless of who bore the cost of creating him? These are all very interesting problems, and I think that would be a good introduction, because from my point of view, you see, John Smith 2.0 being a property of John Smith 1.0 makes sense because you used his cells. But on the other hand, it's just cells, it's just debris. It didn't really alter John Smith 1.0. Taking a sample of his cells in order to clone another human out of him it wasn't an onerous burden. And so the issue becomes, does he belong to John 1.0, or does he belong to the people who financed him, or the scientists who created him? Him, of course, being John 2.0. And finally, of course, is John 2.0 truly a human being? After all, we grant autonomy to twins. We don't say that two identical twins who were born from the same zygote, we don't say that one belongs to the other, or that each one of them has only half the rights of a human being. We say that they both have full rights as a human being, individual rights as human beings, and they're each autonomous. And we don't blink an eye at this very natural notion. But with the issue of John 2.0, these issues flower. And so there's a presentation of the problem.
I have a quick question to the presentation that was, or the premise that's been laid out. Are you birthing the two at the same time as identically, as one in a normal uterus and one in a different, and being birthed at the same time? Or are you artificially making the other one grow quicker?
My mistake. I meant the example of John 1.0. I meant that John was an autonomous human being such as yourself or myself, born naturally and just a human being, just a run-of-the-mill person on the street. John 2.0 is the individual, the clone, who was birthed in this artificial uterus. And I'm positing the artificial uterus for a very simple reason. That way there's no issue, that we're not muddying the waters with the issue of who is the mother of this child. If it's an artificial plastic womb, it has no mother, or it has a disposable mother, if you will. But to go back to your original point, John 1.0, the original John, I posit here in this conversation is just an ordinary human being. It doesn't matter who he is. He's just a man on the street. He was born naturally, and I just wanted to emphasize that issue insofar as John 1.0, the real John, if you will,
Yeah.
and John 2.0, the clone. Does the clone belong to the original human being that he's a copy of, or does he belong to other third party?
The reason why I asked the premise of the point is not to do with whether or not they were birthed the same way or anything else like that. It's to do with age, to do with the fact that was this person either artificially grown completely to a full-grown human or person, or was this person actually grown from birth at the same time as John Smith 1.0 and grew together separately, one in a lab and one by itself? Were they grown at the same time, or were they artificially grown separately?
Well, the idea would be that they were grown separately, and the idea in my own mind, insofar as this is an example, is I'm thinking that John Smith, original, is a fully grown, fully mature adult,
Right, okay.
a 30-year-old. And I would also venture at this time there is no known manner by which aging and development can be speeded up. So let's posit that John 2.0 would develop at a normal pace.
Yeah, that's fine.
Would be born an infant and develop into a child after a year, and I mean a small child after a year or two, and so on.
No, that's fine. Now I completely understand. Now the premise of the argument is now irrefutable. That's an absolutely good point. I would have to say that at that point, I wouldn't actually 100% know if the child would actually be a human or not, or have the same classification as rights, because technically a child is a dependent to their mother, and to the point, most children don't have rights anyway into a certain particular age. So at that point, as a dependency, where does that dependency rely on? Is it the actual point of the capitalist, as in the person financing it? Is it the point of the scientist that's now the dependent, that's now looking after the child? Or is it going back to John for John to look after? Because either way, that's... Go on. Go on.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I thought you had a break there. Just because I want to pose this as we're speaking of this. And thank you so much, chat, for being here. I see everybody out there. We love each and every one of you. I just want to remind you to give generously to the Common Sense Guy via PayPal. Now that that's out of the way, money makes the world go round, right? That's what I just said. That's what I just did. Money makes the world go round. So let's remember there's a precedent for this. Monsanto's, the one-time chemical giant that has now delved into the field of genetically modified organisms in the way of corn, soybeans, you name it, they modify it. They put little bacteria into the genes of the plant they want to modify with the modifier in it. In other words, they can put Roundup, if they attach Roundup to this bacteria, put it in, they can put Roundup in the base of the plant, so Roundup won't kill it, but it'll kill everything else. They own life. We have this. I know we're talking about things that seem like science fiction to people, but this is the science. This is the law of fact. We already have a precedent that life can be owned. So I would just say this as briefly as I can. John Smith 1.0 has rights. This person has rights. He was born a human being, born of man through woman. John Smith 2.0 has no rights. John Smith 2.0, as far as our legal system, as far as nature and everything is concerned, is a contrived being created by man and man alone. And I do like that we're throwing in this. So just bear that in mind, and I wanted to throw that out. So I think one of the big questions of the night is, should mankind own life?
Well, technically we do already by owning pets. But the premise that I was trying to get to was by trying to say that child, no matter if that child had rights or not, is still a dependent. So that child would have to be dependent on either one of the three, or technically four. So that's what I was trying to say. After a particular point, human rights generally kick in, because then you become autonomous. You'll be able to work out and be able to do things on your own and work out what's going on. So between the ages of 0 and around about 12, in my opinion, I would say that the rights of the child are technically null and void, simply because it would be a process of a parent looking after that child. But afterwards, that's when the interesting point comes in.
Actually,
Afterwards,
I'm not quite agreeing with you. I think that the interesting point comes at practically birth, because you see, we all agree that newborn infants, have certain rights that are inviolate. For instance, a newborn child, let's forget about the issue of abortion. A newborn child, we all agree that if anybody were to take away the life of a newborn child, he would be guilty of murder, and he would be instantly prosecuted, right? I mean, if I go and kill a hours old baby, I'm going to be arrested on the spot. Therefore, obviously, a newborn baby has certain rights that we as a society, consider inviolate, right? So would John Smith 2.0, would the same apply to him? Because if I own, say, a television, and I take a hammer and I smash that TV, even if it's a brand new TV, I bought it and I don't like it, I smash that TV. Nobody's going to say anything. At most, they'll say, what a waste, right? But it's my property. I can do it with it as I see fit. But if it's a child and I own that child, okay, not as a parent who is responsible for the child, but as the owner of this work product, because ultimately a clone is a work product. Can I kill it?
I'd have to say no, because then you would be appealing to the social contract, so to speak, to the point of morality, where people would look at that and then go, well, no, the child has rights. Even if it was artificial intelligence, if it looked human enough and acted human enough, we would bestow human rights onto that thing, just because we feel.
So I can't kill it.
No, I'm saying you can. This guy's saying, but I'm going to take the other route and say, listen, one day we're going to have clones. By the way, Dolly was cloned in 96, coach. That blew my mind. We're old now.
Yes, we are.
We're officially old, because it just seems like yesterday. But
yes, it does.
It's going to be a reality. There's nothing that's going to stop it. I know everyone likes to pick on Alex Jones, but I've read the articles. They do have fetuses gestating in the wombs of pigs and cows as we speak. That's a fact. You can't deny it, because they do it. The Chinese government don't even care that people know to a certain extent. So we will have cloned people. I'm going to say that if I had a clone right here, and I was like, hey, clone, go load the furnace. I'm here with Coach Red Pill. We don't get big guys. Well, we do, but I don't. I'm just trying to blow your ego. We got a big guy on tonight. Let me put it that way. So we do. I don't want to. And he says no. I can at that point take my rifle and go, die, bang, and he's dead. And nobody says anything, because that is a contrived. I'll say it again. That's a contrived thing. And I'll go too long-winded. That's my stance on this. Clones have no rights. We can't talk about John Smith 1.0 and John Smith 2.0 like they're even remotely the same. John Smith 2.0, no matter how much they look like a human being, no matter how much they will bleed, no matter how much they cry or learn.
Genetically, they are the same. Genetically,
I understand that. I understand that. But I mean, I'm going in the realm, as I said with Monsanto, in the realm of law. They're not the same. They're one has these unalienable rights that Coach spoke about, where at birth, unfortunately it happens then, but at birth, if you go and strangle a baby, you go to prison. You're an infanticide. You're actually a pariah of the highest degree.
Yeah.
But if you have a clone, if a clone is made for me in a plastic womb, because we all know when you put a baby in a woman's womb, it causes problems. We're not going to talk about tonight. It'd take us all night. But so we said we don't now we has explicated the woman. The woman is no longer in the picture. This thing that comes out of this is my property. If I want to kill it, torture it, and I don't condone it. I also will say this, as we were talking before the chat, gentlemen, we talked about animals, and we all know I love animals. I have chickens. I would flat out shoot someone if they tried to kill my dog. This is my best friend.
Yeah, of course.
Totally. But that said, I still abhor laws that say a man goes to jail if he tortures an animal that he owns. No, as much as I hate it, as much as it disgusts me, that animal is no different than a TV set. Now here's where Common Sense Guy is going to jump down my throat, probably Bollox too, but they're not. As much as we want to defend them, and we should defend them if we can, but not the law. Because the minute the law comes in and says, oh, you starved your dog to death, now you got to go to jail? No. That dog was owned, and there you go. So that's my stance on it. Clones have no rights.
It's still different. It's still different simply because the genetic information is exactly the same as yourself. So for you to have a clone of yourself and then shooting it is exactly the same as you shooting yourself. for literally, as you said, for no reason whatsoever, you can because you think you can. My point is that it doesn't matter at that point whether the child is young, old, or anything. That child has rights simply because it is a human being. Maybe it's exactly the same human being, but it's the point of what Coach said before. The point of identical twins, yes, at different ages, but they're exactly the same. That's not saying that you shouldn't have rights just because that person doesn't have rights. It's not really a good point to go on.
Well, go ahead, Coach. I was going to say I sucked a lot of wind out of the air out of the room. Coach.
No, because it's not that you sucked a lot of air out of the room. It's that you gave us a lot of food for thought. I mean, I can speak for myself at least. So if I'm not saying anything, I'm just like considering it, because this is my thinking. I disagree with you, but I'm trying to understand why. Okay, because you see, your point that a clone is property, it's a very valid point. It's an extremely valid point because it is a work product. Therefore, of course, you don't want to treat a clone with any kind of cruelty, not like on an ethical sense, because like you, I have been a pet owner. My dog passed away. She was old, and I've yet to get another one. But I had her for 15 years. If anybody messed with her in any way, I'd take a gun and shoot the son of a bitch because she was my dog. She was my best friend, right? And so, of course, there's the issue of ethical treatment, and I am in full agreement with you on that issue. Okay, but we're talking in the hypothetical sense that this is my property. I can do with it as I see fit. A clone is no different from a pet, and therefore, if I felt like shooting my pet, I could, because it's just property. But it doesn't seem logical. Now, for example, if I made a clone out of myself, out of my own cells, right? And this CRP version 2 walked around and displeased me, didn't bring me my drink quick enough or something, and I shot it, right? Well, you see, what's the difference between me and version 2.0? Well, the fact of how it was brought to term, and how it was conceived potentially.
Interesting. Can I have a quick question?
Shoot.
Say, for instance, that you have a child that has now come out and is very, very early and has to use an incubator to make sure that they're alive. Right. Does that then negate that child's right just because it wasn't born properly?
Exactly. See, it doesn't. Nobody in their right mind would say, "Oh, we had to put the kid in an incubator, therefore, it can't vote or something like that, or it can't own a car, or some." It doesn't limit its rights in any sense of the word. Okay, and our natural human sympathy would, in point of fact, make us devote more time and energy to that infirm child. Well, that's a different problem, so let's ignore that. But yeah, nobody in their right mind would say just because of how they were cared for at the time of their birth. Also, think of children that were test tube babies. Nobody's going around, checking your test tube baby card to see if you were a natural conception or a test tube conception. That law hasn't passed yet. Nobody really cares. Yeah. And of course, nobody in their right mind would say that a test tube baby has fewer rights than a normal.
Oh, I heard a little jap out there. I would just wonder, though, would there be a difference if, because we now have a clone has no parents? And Coach Red Pill, are you still there?
I know his internet's been quite shoddy recently.
Yeah, that robot sound, that's usually the bad sound. That might mean we're losing for a minute or two. But we're doing great here anyway. We haven't heard from Magic Bollox. I'm sure he'll jump in. He's probably wondering why the hell what's going on right now. And I'm just praying that Bollox is coming up with the most inappropriate jokes for this situation to keep it going.
I'm just listening to what everybody's saying at the moment. It's very fascinating, isn't it? Because my take is, why would we want to clone ourselves anyway? I mean, obviously there's the...
Oh man, my heart's getting old right now. Are you kidding, Bollox?
Exactly.
Why would I want to clone myself? I wish I've talked about this before, and everybody hates me for it. I should have like a quiver of arrows. I should have a quiver of clones in the room back there, just warm enough to where they don't die. Like really, like not cryostasis, but cold, and they don't learn anything. They're just drooling morons back there, but they look exactly like me in different stages. And see what I mean? Why not, man? I mean, that would be the best thing. And maybe Coach is back. But yeah,
Sorry about that.
Bollox. No worries. But Bollox, yeah. So as I cut you off, Bollox, what do you find in this though? I mean, so now you see what you need one for to replace. I mean, if I had my own clone, I could get a new heart at 40, no problem. I got one right there. New lung, whatever. I need a new liver, new kidney, no worries. In fact, no problem with acceptance or rejection medication. It's fucking me.
But then you have the definition of what makes you human then.
Yeah.
Because if you have people that are put in the back, I'm going to use the term people, even though they're clones of yourself. If you have people behind you and still just on ice or whatever, or use as medical terms, they're still people. They're still you. They're still classified as humans. What's the difference just because they don't know anything? That's trying to say that mentally retarded people are not humans. I know that's not the premise you're using, but that's the correlation that you could make.
Yeah. I suppose I find... I mean... I've always been kind of anti-interfering with nature to a certain extent. There's obviously, medical advances throughout the 20th and early 21st century that's made us very, it allowed human longevity to be the longest it's ever been. But there is a point where I just think from an ethics point of view, you can go too far. Mm-hmm. A really good example is me and my other half. We're both in our late 30s now. We don't have any kids. She has a problem reproducing without medical intervention. Now, a lot of people of that age, you get a lot of women who have their careers and then panic, get with a bloke, get pregnant, and then moan like fuck because they've left it too late and their reproductive cycle's gone into decline. So you'll find loads of them doing IVF and all sorts of other things costing the NHS hundreds of thousands, not millions. And then they might get one baby if they're lucky. And I don't agree with that. I think that it should only be reserved for the most serious of cases. And I'm sure people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. That's up to them. And cloning is just another means of sticking our nose into Mother Nature's way of running things. And I mean, my life is hard enough as it is without having my clone having to put up with all the shit I've had to put up with. So the very thought that this poor bastard would have to, attempt to live my life as well as my own.
No one's getting the point. You could have this clone. You could have him set up so, every, 8 hours a day, he was gently walking on a treadmill. You don't teach him to read or write or talk or anything. You don't sit down and have a bloody drink with it. It's just there to give you a bloody heart when you need it. So anyway, yeah, Coach, we've been talking a lot about this. I very quickly, if I may, Common Sense, I think this was so good from Binary Surfer. Binary Surfer is saying this. There are 3 threats to this discussion: the law, ethics, and practicalities. Law is usually formed from ethics. Ethics are usually formed from a mix of empathy and practicalities. Maybe you could even touch on that as you were going to continue there, Coach.
Well, insofar as the practicality of it, we just, for the sake of this conversation, we'll just do it as a given. Oh, what I wanted to mention is that notion of having your clone as your insurance policy in case, one of your organs fails or something like that. Well, that's been the premise of at least 2 pieces of art that I can think of. One is the novel Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, who just won the Nobel Prize, as a matter of fact. And they made it into a movie, I believe with Keira Knightley and this other actress, some very good actress. And it was basically that. It was a school for clones. And the children were taught the very minimum. And they were taught to be very compliant and docile, and to understand that their life was a sacrifice to their owners being the original versions. And the other movie I'm thinking about, well, I read the book, and so I actually never saw the movie of the Kazuo Ishiguro book, but it was a very interesting book. And anyway, and then there's the movie The Island, which was not a very good one. It was with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson, and they were both clones who were insurance policies. But in that movie, there was a difference because the clones sort of like emerged as fully adults. They were able to accelerate the process so that they gestated and came out of their plastic pouches as fully grown adults. Though mentally they had the emotional and intellectual ability of a child. Now, my thinking of that, of having these clones as insurance policies, I think that would be, I think it would be morally reprehensible, because you're basically, using them as in a vampiric way, in looking at them, because I would look at them as human beings.
Yep.
And therefore it would fall into the category of not looking at human beings as means to ends, but rather as ends in themselves.
Yeah.
I could not view the use of clones as anything other than that.
All right, but wait, very quickly, what makes us human? I mean, let me try not to be so. Let me try not to be so cryptic.
Questions.
Let me try not to be so cryptic about it. Isn't it the mind? It's not the brain, right? It's not this thing that looks like my two fists inside of my cabeza. It's not that, right? It's the mind, not the brain. And so I want to go back and please, I don't want to be looked at as immoral, but this is where I will stand. If you never teach this clone to read and write, you don't even teach it that it's alive. You keep it exercising and healthy. And then at the end,
I can go one better. Why don't we just, as soon as we conceive it, we go in there with in its artificial womb and extract most of its thinking brain. Most of its.
Yes. You're talking. Make it a complete, lobotomized, gibbering moron. I mean, I don't care about my clone as far as anything other than it's very healthy. It never smokes. It never drinks. It doesn't do all the wonderful things that I enjoy doing. It just grows healthy. So, and look, I want to say, if we are saying this is immoral, then please remember the Monsanto comment. I'll come back to that later because I may agree with you.
But there's an obvious qualitative difference between seeds and plants and wheat and a human being. Okay, I mean, yes, they are in the same category, living things, but in terms of what they actually are, they're just universe.
But we classify living things. We mow our grass with lawnmowers. Nobody thinks about the blades of grass that are getting hacked off.
Let's not go down the premise of
you when you mow the lawn.
Yeah, but let's not go down the premise of. Let's not go down the premise of.
If it's just a turnip, though, common sense. And I will shut up for now for 10 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
No, it's fine. I don't want you to be quiet. It's just that there's no point in going down the premise of saying that grass has feelings, Joe. That there's no point in that in the debate. It's the same as you can say.
But if you lobotomize the clone at birth, there's no sense in saying that it has feelings. If it's a complete vegetable, you turn it into a brain dead vegetable that's only capable of getting on the treadmill, lifting weights, and keeping healthy.
That's fine. But the point is, you had to lobotomize it first. You had to take its rights away first for you to be able to make it docile.
Because we keep saying, even you're saying it, because it has no rights. It is it is owned by its creators.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the fact that what you are saying is logically consistent, and yet I vehemently and viscerally disagree with it. Okay,
that's why I'm here, sir.
It's my problem that I have to figure out how to counter your argument, because your argument is valid. It is logical and consistent. Okay, I personally find that like vampiric, as I said before, and of course, please, this is in great respect, because I find it great to be having this kind of conversation where you're just toying with ideas and like trying to figure it out, because ultimately a lot of the ideas and come out of emotions, and right now the emotion I'm feeling is, I don't want to agree with you, and yet intellectually you are bringing out a sound and valid argument. So we got to figure out how to defeat it.
Cheers.
Who's
cheers.
with me?
I'll give you boys a few minutes to think about it, because I stand by it, and I understand all the arguments will be, well, it looks human, it this, it that, but it's not human.
But that's not the argument that I'm going through. The argument that I've already said is the fact that you have to change the fact that you want to lobotomize the actual thing, whatever premise or word you want to use for that. You want to destroy the whole consciousness of the clone in itself for you to be able to use the clone.
Okay, here you go.
It's the breach of rights. on the clone.
But you're not looking at this. A clone is a part of you. Can I clip my fingernails and carry on, Coach Red Pill?
No, because common sense. What you're saying is that it would be immoral to lobotomize the fetus, right? Okay, fine. It's immoral to lobotomize the fetus, and therefore it's immoral to have an abortion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Cheers.
Oh well, then okay. So yeah, because I do too. My thinking is that life begins at conception, because there's really no way to argue out of it. And the practical argument that so many people have used, that it's not viable after X number of weeks. Well, technology is catching up, so that's going to be a non-argument pretty soon. So yeah. But anyway, my counter to your argument, collapses as you're on my side of the fence on that issue. But look, it seems clear to me. There's another possibility. For instance, hypothetically, and just posit it, that we have some gene splicing technology such that we can, create a fetus that genetically will never develop a brain. Okay, it'll be, anencephalic, I believe is the word, just lacking in a brain. Okay, or it would. Let's again just posit that it would have a brain such that its basic functioning would exist, and it would be able to,
just the lower brain, just your base brain in the back.
Yeah, and carry out exercise so that it's a healthy body, but it would be mindless. Okay, let's just posit that. Would it be acceptable to treat it as just a hunk of meat?
Interesting question.
Well, I would say yes, but only because, listen, I would say yes, but not based on its mental capacity. Because if I was to go with that argument, I would have to say, well, a functional retarded human being would get by. But then if they were so retarded, they were just a burden to society. Well, then I could just, so I would say, no, it has nothing to do with its mental state. I would still take the stance I'm taking. If my clone could come out and say, hey, what's up, Ogre? How you doing this morning? I was like, pretty good, dude. I had some palpitations this morning. You better hope I'm all right, fuckstick, because that's your ass.
Yeah.
Well, I do really find that the whole premise quite interesting. It's exactly as you said. Whatever premise that you use about trying to disinfect the brain, so to speak, or disenchant the brain's uses, it's the same point as you can use it for, as you already said, the mental retarded people in society in itself, or mentally handicapped, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
And it's a case of...
And also the case of, for example, somebody who suffers a degenerative neurological disease.
Yeah.
Right? I happen to know somebody close to me. He's actually the father of my brother-in-law, who suffered this. And he went into a steep mental decline at 53. It was quite tragic. He was a very energetic man. And in his mid-50s, his brain started to literally die. And it was explained to me. It was very complicated. But the upshot was that by the time he was 60, he was bedridden and his mind was gone. Okay. Yeah. But of course, nobody in his right mind would think of shooting him. That would be murder. Okay. And you could argue that, maybe his personhood was grandfathered in by the fact that he was perfectly sentient before this illness struck him. That could be a potential argument. But even without that, I think that we'd all be in agreement that somebody who has had some sort of degenerative neurological disease that has rendered him mindless has the right to physical integrity. We'd never think of killing him.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you have people who have suffered, like motorcycle accidents, and they're brain dead, but we have no compunction whatsoever in harvesting their organs. So there comes another monkey wrench into the gears.
So I guess my biggest question would be: could you gentlemen ever see a situation where, if you had the ways and means, the ability, in other words, you could afford it, and they could take a bit of your hair follicle and get the DNA and get that growing and grow you? I mean, could we see is there any way? What if this, gentlemen? Let me put it this way: what if at birth? What if look? I'm trying to twist. So let me go this. Can
I ask a quick question and see if this one goes?
Yes. Let me spit this out very quickly. If we could go before birth, because we all agree that abortion is wrong, but it is legal. If we could go in there and get the organs from this clone out of the plastic womb, if we could get the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, the things that we would want, could we take those out and okay, yes, there we go. Could we grow those? Would that be moral?
Yes, I agree. That would be moral. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, let's assume that you're not discarding anything, that you're getting exactly what is necessary to grow a heart or a new pair of lungs.
But gentlemen, that's where I've got you, because if
left alone, we know
if left alone, the thing would live. It seems to me
that that's the thing. You already said the thing will live. You already said the thing will live. What I was agreeing with you was the fact that you would be able to harvest the organs, so to speak, before birth, or even better, which was going to be my premise, that you could take the DNA from yourself now, from your liver or something like that, and you could grow your own liver. And then have that DNA stand, or whatever, anywhere you wanted. Yeah. You could take the DNA from that and grow that as your cloned liver, your cloned heart, your cloned lungs. You don't have to perform the cloning itself to be able to get what you need.
Look, as long as people are looking at this from a point to where it's feelings, then, boys, we're always going to have this blockade against stem cell research. So we'll be like, oh, stem cell research. And yes, that's why I'm trying to pop this in there too, because, look, if a fetus, if there is something from the womb that dies and it is now no longer of use to people in any way, well, then we have a situation, to me, like the donors that you were talking about, CRP. We have a situation, well, then can we use the stem cells? But no, we will always have people that anytime you talk about something dies, you'll have PETA stand up and say, oh, the people for the ethical treatment. Now I actually see people coming out for the ethical treatment of plants. So this is my point. Where does this end? And that's it. And I wasn't trying to stop everybody.
Let's set that aside for the moment, and I want to go in a different direction. Okay, let's posit that that you're right, that that clones are just work product and we own them. And let's even ignore the issue of the ownership. Let's just say that it could be, in some cases, the DNA donor is the owner, and in some cases the fabricant is the owner. It doesn't matter for the sake for the point I want to make. Suppose this: we all agree that clones are property. Okay, so something. Shit, I got the money. It costs $100,000 to make myself a clone. Fuck it, I'm gonna make myself like 10 clones, and I'm gonna grow them, and I'm gonna sell them as slaves, and I'm gonna just have my own little slave farm, and I'll it should be a cinch to just take some of my cells and flip it so it's double X chromosome, and grow myself a female clone and have her mate with my other male clones and have a whole breeding farm of clones, like puppy farms. Same breeding farm of clones.
Yeah, I still say that they still have rights on that point because of the fact that you're still breeding them.
Well, what about puppy farms, puppy mills?
It's different to talk about, but it's different to talk about animals in the same instance as what we would classify as humans. We bestow rights.
Wait. We just posited that Ogre is right, and that they are.
You've cornered me. You've cornered me bad too, because I'm trying to say that we wouldn't want to let them breed, but then you've cornered me there. That's a tough one right there, mate.
Yeah, that's what I like it. Yeah, because this is payback, because you nailed us so bad. Okay, so I'm just taking it to its logical extreme.
And I would have to say, to be consistent, I would have to say, of course that would be okay, because I'm trying to find a way to say that you couldn't let them breed, but it doesn't come out consistent at all. So I'd have to say, in that case, that's Pandora's box, and that would be okay.
Well, that's what me and Binary Server have been talking about in the chat, is that to us, the end game would be if they could actually make a human clone, but one that was, intellectually inferior to either its original person or whomever they've based it on. They're basically creating a clone collection of slaves to a certain extent. Yeah. And you can imagine in years to come, there's Mr. Ogre at the moment with his chicken farm. Who's not to say in years to come they'll have clone farms? People will be raising them and breeding them, and then selling them maybe even for for all we know, for fucking food at one point.
Yeah, I haven't even thought of that. I really hadn't. That is that would be to me the ultimate conundrum, because everything else that I've heard so far, anybody raised, it's not bothered me at all. I've not been bothered one bit. But the idea that then they would be bred for, I am Jewish too, Coach. So my people did build the bloody pyramids under threat of death and extinction from the Egyptians. So I do have certain feelings about slavery. But I don't know, man. Touche.
It's very true. Sorry, Coach. It's the whole idea is that I think the whole premise of them being clones as workers / slaves or whatever you want to call them wouldn't be for the people's benefit, in the same way that now we're having trouble with too many people coming into the West, supposedly looking for work, but that's a different matter. It could be the next stage to that, which is more people being used to drive labor costs down, more people prepared to work for the 1%.
No, because you're looking at it wrong. They're slaves. You don't pay them.
That's what I mean. That's the natural progression, isn't it? Right down to the bottom, to nothing.
Yeah. But the thing is,
the national living wage would go down, wouldn't it? The national living wage would go down, and you'd have to own a slave to be able to work at any place or earn any money. Because if you weren't a slave, you wouldn't be able to get any money, would you?
No.
That's what Magic Bollox is trying to suggest.
And you probably wouldn't be able to afford a slave either if you were a person on a normal wage.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, just as slave owners in the past. I mean, I'm not talking just the American example, but all historical examples. Slave owners were a fractional minority of the population. So yeah, I mean, slavery has always been, the industry of the oligarchy of any society. So automatically there, the notion of having clones as puppy mills is of course abhorrent to everybody. And so right there, it's a big chink in the argument, but it's a valid argument. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out a way. I mean, that Ogre has presented. So we have to figure out a way to naturally grant clones a degree of humanity that, I mean, okay, Ogre, let me ask you, can you repeat your argument to see, so that we can understand it a little better, or sort of like recap it? Because
I would simply say that even after what's been said, that I'm standing firm with, if you take something only from me, and I'm going to say this is where I have a little weasel room, because I've said it from the beginning. If you take something only from me and you make that into a human being, again, we've talked about the plastic uterus and everything, that product has no rights, is not a human being, can be done with as I please, blown up just like the television set you spoke of, that yes, it would be a waste, but it would be my business. And I would say that when you bring nature back into it, I'm going to try this argument. When you bring nature back into it and allow the clones now to breed in a natural way, that the product of that coupling would now be two different people. And because you can't clone a male and female from one human being yet. So that would be from two different clones. That would be a new human. That human should have rights. And that if clones ever come about, that should be avoided at all costs, that thing. But that's my argument, is that if something is made from me, that it is no different than cutting what's left of my hair, because it has my DNA in it, or trimming my fingernails, or scraping off cheek cells, that it all belongs to me. It's a part of me, and I can do with it what I want. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It makes complete sense.
The only thing that I would say to that argument is, but the cells that made you were made from two different human beings. So why would that be a point that if you were able to make say, for instance, obviously using it as an idea, you'd be technically making a child using somebody else's DNA to make a female, so to speak, as you said. But it still took two different humans' DNA to make you. So
it doesn't wash. It doesn't wash, because we're talking about two. Remember, this is what we got to remember, what Coach Redfield put so perfectly in the beginning. John Smith 1.0 and John Smith 2.0. That's what we have to remember. That yes, John Smith 1.0 has rights, but the minute you take John Smith 2.0, yes, it came from cells that came from two people, but they had nothing to do with the production of that. That would be down to myself, to scientists that were able to do it, to doctors and scientists able to do it, and to my ability to have the money to do it, or their ability to have the money to do it. And again, I would say whoever paid for it, I hate to go down that route, but to follow my own logic, whoever paid for it at that point would own that clone. So in other words, if the clone came from me, but I went to a place I couldn't afford a clone, they were like, yeah, we'd like to use you for a clone. I don't know why they'd use me, but we'd like to use you for a clone. And I said, okay, well, I would have no rights. I couldn't come back a year later like some of these bloody surrogate moms do and say that I have some kind of right. No, at that point, that entity, that thing would be owned by someone else. And I know these are tough things, but people, listen, we're old now here, us lot, compared to the new, you know, none of us here are what do they call these? The Gen Next, whatever the new guys are. We're all over 30 is what I'm trying to stumble out. We will probably see clones come in and look at what's happening with illegal aliens in our country. Do we want to assign rights to something that may come about that could bloody start voting? What are we going to let it vote?
Yes. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because it's the same as your mum and dad having another child. And I'm using the same premise as what you're using with DNA. It is your mum and dad having another child and technically having an identical twin. That's literally what you're doing. It is. It's the same DNA that your mum and dad put into you. It's the same DNA that your mum and dad put into you.
No. What happened is my dad, I'm sorry, you're a little old for this, but I'm going to have to share this with you. My dad put his penis into my mom's vagina.
Well done.
He created friction.
Okay,
and then
stop with the ad hominem. Stop with the ad hominem.
Well, no, that's not ad hominem. You're being obtuse. You're conveniently overlooking the fact that my parents had nothing to do with it.
Okay, I'm not. You made the premise of trying to say that if you had to, for the puppy farm, if you had to make a female version, you'd have to put in a different point. I'm using your premise of saying that if you agree with that that's then human, then you'd have to agree with the same premise that because there was two humans that made that clone would then have the same rights as the one that you said has rights.
I don't see it in perpetuity like you're trying to say. I just don't agree with it. And good argument. I'll say that. Hey, aren't we supposed to be arguing with Coach Red Pill?
Yeah. Can I just?
I'm watching. I'm audience right now. I got popcorn here.
Can I just jump in for a sec, lads? I just want to ask Mr. Ogre just one little question about his stance on this, because I'm probably leaning more with Coach and Common Sense on this, which is from a biological point of view, they are identical. So you can't really say it's not, it's a thing. It's not it's not a he or a she. But I want to know what Mr. Ogre's, why he's come to the conclusion he has. Is it from a religious point of view, which is that, thou shalt not play God?
No, it's because Mrs. Ogre just walked in. We've made really good decisions in our life, and we do pretty well. And I'm sure that I could afford a clone, and I would like to one day get one. And I would like to one day have an extra set of kidneys and an extra heart. And all these things, extra eyes. They can do wonderful things with eyes. Extra skin grafts. If I ever got burnt, I could have that some bitch flayed like a fish, man, and put the skin right on me. Right. All that stuff. No, that's why.
Right. Okay. And the reason I'm asking this, and I'm sorry to go off topic ever so slightly, but it will lead back, so don't worry.
Yeah, clone Mrs. Ogre.
No.
Okay, all right.
No. That comes later.
Are you a clonist? Are you a clonist? I don't associate with clonists.
No, hang on, Coach. This is all going to come back round. Watch this. Right, Mr. Ogre. Okay, would you allow this clone that you've bought into your house? You would accept it as a person? Common Sense has picked up already what I'm on. Yeah.
No, I'm a digiphobe, so you're trying to.
I know what I'm doing because I know you. I'm going to fucking catch you out on this, which is
when I live in the house.
You will allow a clone into your house, but you won't let that fucking sex robot into your house. You digiphobia.
I'm a digiphobe. Yes.
Oh, I can't believe I associate with you. You phobia.
Oh man, I'm really gonna get it. Hey, look, somebody had to play the bad cop tonight, folks, and I seen we were all agree. So I mean, you lot were agreeing on something, and so I've got to take the logical yet opposite road.
It's the thing. So your point of view is not only logical, it is, I would venture to say, in many ways, the correct point of view if you want to be logically consistent. It's the logically inconsistent are us three. because you're being logically consistent, because what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, like, for instance, you know, if I lose, just for the sake of argument, the tip of my pinky, right? Well, yeah, it's going to hurt and all that, but it's, you know, not the end of the world, right? And I don't have a problem with it. It's just, you know, the end of my pinky. It's all of my cells, you know, however many million of my own cells, however many millions of strands of my DNA are there. Yeah, and so what if I take this little pinky and turn it into a clone? You know, it's just, you know, a piece of me, a part of me. I own it. It's logically consistent to view it in that way. The issue becomes that viscerally we don't feel that it is, and it's up to us. The onus is on us, it seems to me.
Oh, I have a question.
Shoot.
We say that obviously that we're talking about being able to buy the clone, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that I'm going to do a vegan gains here? Does that mean that because we used to do slavery that made it right? Because we used to buy humans, does that mean that they don't have rights? Just because we can buy something that's human, does that mean that it's right to do that?
But clone's not human. It's not human.
Depends on your
I take that back. Scientifically, it actually is human.
Exactly.
But I would say that it wouldn't have the human rights. Folks, I got to keep saying this. One day, this is going to be real. And I think it's going to be a lot sooner than later. And we have to remember that. I mean, common sense. Do you really want, Coach Red Pill, do you want a clone voting like something that was once?
Well, no, I don't want it voting, but I want it to do my job so I can just scratch my balls and watch TV all day.
Yeah, now you've come over to my side. I've won one over. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in favor of clone slavery. Yes, make them slaves to serve me.
Yeah, I'm going to be against that.
Oh, come to the dark side. Come to the dark side.
No. The point that I was trying to make was that, as you said, they are scientifically and genetically, they are completely not the human. It's just a point that we won't give them rights. So to take that premise that we won't give them rights, it still goes across to the slavery argument to say, well, we didn't give blacks rights, but now we do. Does that mean they're not human?
To be fair to the blacks, they are conceived in exactly the same way, so that argument doesn't wash. But I suppose the idea is if it's something that's created entirely that's not conceivable without human science.
Wait, why doesn't it wash?
No, because there's lots of cases of human beings who could not exist without human science, and we don't strip them of rights.
Yeah, but they didn't. Okay, but I think what Bollox is saying is they don't exist only because of science. They exist. They are continuing because of science. Their genesis, if you will, didn't. Yes,
test tube babies.
Exactly.
Yeah, but test tube babies, you still have sperm and an egg. You still have the two. Nothing unnatural about that.
The sperm is magical?
But there's nothing unnatural about it, Coach.
You forgot the beginning bit of what Coach already said. You forgot what Coach said at the beginning, that it's born from a uterus, means that it was still having the whole point of being cell divided and growing through the uterus. He actually said it still comes through the uterus. Artificially, but still comes through an artificial uterus. So technically, it's still actually grown properly.
Yeah, I mean, look. I mean, if we're taking the original example, the original premise of this discussion, which is a clone. I'm assuming it's some donated egg that's been stripped of its DNA, and the DNA of the clone donor, the clone donor cells, John Smith 1.0, is injected into the egg, and that egg is implanted in an artificial uterus and grown for 9 months, and it's delivered, and there we have John 2.0, right? There are compelling arguments to say that it is property, and in fact, it would be logically consistent to call it property.
Which I would agree with, unfortunately.
Yeah. Though viscerally, I at least believe that it would be an autonomous and distinct human being with rights and privileges as any other infant born to a woman from a natural, quote unquote, heterosexual coupling. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt, because I look at cases, for instance, the test tube babies. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody says that they have lesser rights. If these artificial uteri become widespread, which I believe that they will be, because I think that there are a lot of people, a lot of women, especially a lot of professional women, who, for various reasons, will prefer or need these artificial wombs to carry their child to term, well, we're not going to be discriminating against these children, just as we don't discriminate against a child that was spent any time in an incubator, for instance.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the idea of the process of how this infant, be it clone or natural human, came to be is irrelevant into the rights that we grant it. I think that we can all agree on that, right? So why is it that a clone has lesser rights than a naturally how do you call like a child born of two different parents? You know,
just a natural born child,
a natural born child. Okay,
but I think you all are getting all around it. You're hitting all around it because you in a test tube. I've said it before, but let me say it very clearly. In a test tube, in a intercourse, in an intrauterine, in any kind of conception, you have DNA from one person combining with another person, making a new human. In a clone situation, you do not have that.
Yes, you do. You just have it from the.
Oh God, that's so crazy. That is
that is
a
that means you don't exist.
No, hang on. That is a Bollox argument. Because you're telling me now that my parents own my beard trimmings.
No,
that's what you're saying. I'm just going to disregard
you're
because it's actually Bollox argument. Because my parents have nothing to do with me making a decision to clone myself. They have nothing to do with that. They have nothing to do with it whatsoever.
I'm not saying that.
The idea, because now you're saying that what? Do your parents have any say in what you do now, Common Sense? Do they tell you
but their
what
DNA still shaped the way that I was thinking and the way that I move and the way that I talk.
So they actually own, according to you, what you're saying, because you're talking about perpetuity.
That's not what I'm saying at all. You're trying to misconstrue what I'm saying.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that it's just a fallacy. It's just a crazy argument to say that if I then the clone belongs to my parents. If I clone something from me,
no, the clone does.
I'm saying that the clone comes from me. It does not come from my parents. To say that the clone comes from my parents is insanity.
I don't think he's saying that.
I'm not saying that at all.
That's what he said several times. He said that there was two people that made the clone.
If you let me finish, I can tell you my fucking argument. Is that okay? My actual argument is not the process that you are trying to say that it's a case of somebody owns that, somebody owns this. I'm saying that to make you, two people had to make their DNA conceive together to form a child. Those same DNA are still used to make the clone. Just because it's your DNA doesn't mean the two consensual people didn't conceive the DNA first of all.
Their common sense, I would disagree, because from my point of view, it's this. It's the two people come together and conceive a child, right? John Smith 1.0.
So does that mean twins don't exist then?
Wait. No. They come together and their DNA combines to create John Smith 1.0. Now, John Smith 1.0, be he a single individual, or perhaps he happened, the zygote happened to split and it became twins, right? In either case, the product of that union is a separate DNA sequence, and it would have autonomy. But as I'm speaking to, I'm realizing the problem of the twin. Because you would never in your right mind say that one twin belongs to the other.
Exactly.
Okay? They're autonomous.
But they both came about at the same time. We can agree with that.
That doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter. So now it's perpetuity. We're going back to its perpetuity. My parents made me, therefore my fingernail clippings are theirs.
No. It has nothing to do with the parents. It has to do with the fact that, once your combination of DNA is created, right, you own it. It's yours. You are an independent human being, divorced from your parents, or not divorced, but separate from
separate.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, and it's non-controversial. Your parents each contributed to your DNA, but the DNA that was created by this contribution of both parties created a unique individual who is separate and distinct from the two parents. And the individual who has his particular DNA, that is, you have your DNA, you are the owner of that DNA inherently. But the problem becomes, I was going to argue this. I was going to say that since you are the owner of your DNA, your personhood and your DNA are two distinct things whereby your personhood is the owner of your DNA sequence. You would be the owner, and you can transfer ownership of the DNA as just as you would like a copyright, or just as you would, anything, a registered trademark or a patent, right? Because in point of fact, that happens. Different strains of wheat, for instance, by Monsanto are traded and bought and sold and what have you. And so you as a person own your DNA, and then you can sell it. We could posit, because the obvious whole becomes twins.
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
owns the DNA of twins? But we could posit that in that case, twins, because of how they were not conceived but created, because it's after conception that the zygote splits, right? We could say that in the exceptional case of twins, both of them own the DNA, their own DNA, or any DNA that comes from their particular body, but do not own the DNA that comes from the other's body.
No, I'm showing my ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Identical twins have identical DNA?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Okay,
Yes.
I did not know that. I won't lie. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. But the difference between the twins, the fact that you can tell the difference between twins, has to do with other biological stuff that I am not.
Lifestyle choices, probably.
No,
I mean, I understand the difference between paternal twins and the splitting of a zygote, but I guess I should have realized, but I didn't realize they own the same DNA.
Yeah, because it's basically the same sperm, but this is the egg that splits into two. So that's why they are so identical.
No.
But obviously external factors can play a part.
If we haven't learned anything, it's that there would be a lot of freaking problems with clones. If that's one thing I'm learning.
Yeah.
Right now.
My argument was in this direction. See, you as a person own your DNA. Okay, and let's just, for the sake of argument, set aside the twin problem. Okay, so what Ogre is saying is right, because you see, if you own your DNA, you can take your DNA.
I agree. If you take away the twin problem,
done.
I agree. If you take away the twin problem.
Now the twin problem, I think the solution to that is very simple. You can take the DNA from your body, because the DNA is embodied in the cells of the person, right? By definition. And so therefore, you, for example, common sense, you're my twin, just for the sake of argument.
Yeah, sure.
I could not take cells from your body to create, I could not take the DNA from a cell from your body, and just as you could not do it to me, because I own all the cells of my body, but I do not own any of the cells of your body, because we are each autonomous. It just so happens that we have identical DNA, but the source of our DNA, if we were to sell it, has to come from our own body, not from the body of each other. You see what I'm saying?
No, I see what you're saying, but I have a quick premise to that. If you're going to obviously do that, and you then have the conception and everything else of that, and the baby and everything else of that, and it goes through and it starts growing up, does that not mean that child then owns its own DNA if you're still having the same conception of twins?
That's another problem. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking too. The twin thing throws a monkey wrench in it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would just say that again. I got to agree.
Wait.
You own the product of your own body. When I take a dump, I own it. I could be just like who was the aviator guy that was all crazy. I could be Howard Hughes, and I could keep my urine and my feces. It's mine. And I would say that as much as people are not liking this, I know it's triggered. I've been triggered. Everybody gets emotional when they want their idea to be put forward, but. Isn't it the same damn thing? Common sense. Isn't it the same thing? Isn't my clone the same as my shit?
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It generally isn't, because obviously you have the conception of a child. A piece of shit can't. Well, I suppose a piece of shit. Depends on
if it's a clone of me, it's definitely a piece of shit.
You piece of shit clone! God damn it! Get me my gun.
All right.
I just like how whenever I said my clone would be a piece of shit, the coach fucking jumped right on that. Oh yeah,
but what rights?
Shit, I get it.
Yeah, but what rights do your shits have? And what's good, Mr. Ogre? Don't tell me you got favoritism as well.
Don't tell me that the shit can vote now. Oh no.
Oh, it would, Coach. You'd be voting Democrat.
You know, all that shit would be voting Democrat. You know they would, and they'd be feminists too. The bloody turds.
Yeah, man. The thing is, I actually quite like the way Coach framed it in the idea that your DNA could be classed as copyright, because you think about it, if you're a person who's got incredibly good genes, you could make a lot of money out of the fact that you own your genes, it's your copyright, and you could sell your organs because you have good genes, you produce very healthy sort of like kidneys and livers, and you can actually make a lot of money for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
To a point that already happens. Obviously, if you want to take it to its most basic premise, you have sperm donors. So you go through the whole lot of ideas of that. But recently, they have points of being able to change the color in people's eyes, or they're trying to get to that point.
Yeah.
So you have the point of being able to change the colors in people's eyes. You have the point of being able to give them more physical attributes. You have the point of being able to change the intellect attributes. Are those people still...
Sorry, Common Sense. Is that leaning towards the old? I've known it for a few years now. The designer babies.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my point at the end of that. My point at the end of that is.
Yeah.
My point at the end of that is, with all those genetic informations that's being changed, does that still make that your baby? And if not, then why does it not make it your baby?
Well, before we get into that, I wanted to talk more about the issue of you copyrighting your DNA. I think that that's a very intriguing issue, because the thing that you're talking about is improving your DNA, improving the genes, and so whether it still is you or not, and that's the identity problem. And that
question.
What? Go ahead.
Does that extend to blood type and blood?
What do you mean?
Well, obviously DNA would be still in part in your blood, even though it's obviously down to types and things like that. It would still be your type of blood will still have your genetic information in it. If you copyright your blood, then you wouldn't be able to give your blood away.
Sure, you can. You can give away copyrighted material.
No, you can, but generally most people would pay for it. And if you can give away copyrighted material, then you'd be able to give it away for somebody who wanted to clone a baby because they can't have one, for instance.
Sure, because well, look, I mean, like copyright. For example, I write a novel and I copyright it. Hang on a second. Hello. Suppose I write a novel, I copyright it, right? And I print up some copies, but then I hand out the copies for free. What exactly would be the difference?
I'm not saying that.
Good point.
No, but I'm not saying that.
What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that it wouldn't matter if you copyrighted it anyway, because you would still give away those copies. That's the point that I'm making. Yeah, you can make money off of it, but you're still giving it away anyway. So it wouldn't matter if you copyrighted it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, even if you're giving it away for free, right? The fact that you own the copyright, okay, you're giving, for instance, you're giving blood away for free, or sperm. It doesn't matter what it is. You're just giving something away for free.
Yep.
You own the copyright on the DNA, so that would mean. Well, actually, this happened. There's this case of some women during the 40s that they took some cells from them. Oh man, it's I forget the exact details of the case, and I forget the name of the case. So okay, well, let's skip it. If you
no, don't do that to me. We'll take your word for it. I'll look it up. Believe me, I'll look it up. If you're making it up,
that's fine.
You're a liar. Just tell us about what we were saying, so we know the premise.
It happened that some woman that they tested her for some antibiotic. She was a black woman. They tested several black women. And what you call it, and they one of them was resistant, and because of this resistance, they were able to develop some antibiotics, something like that. Okay.
Oh, but from her blood or something.
Yeah, exactly. And they never gave her credit for it. Okay.
Are you talking about sickle cell anemia and the Tuskegee Institute tests?
It could be. Okay, it was something like that. I mean, I honest. If I saw a picture of the woman,
so the lawsuit was.
The lawsuit was that the woman claimed that it was hers, and that she should own the work product of this, or her descendants rather should earn, because I believe the woman was dead, but her descendants should earn the royalties from the work product that came from her cells.
Yeah.
Okay. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. That she is the owner of her DNA, and because of her ownership of her DNA, anything that there has to be some sort of a legal agreement where she's either ceding the rights to her DNA or she's being appropriately compensated for the rights to her DNA, right? That's what I would argue. that DNA is yours, and I do believe that legally it is an established fact that DNA is
Property.
yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah.
The only thing I would say to that is then obviously you've got the government that's trying to I think in about 3 to 4 years trying to implement ideas of being able to put DNA onto a card or using a microchip into your skin and things like that.
Yeah.
Does that still count or?
Well, what is it? A registry of DNA? I don't think a registry counts.
No, not a
registry.
Not a registry. It's a case of being able to put your DNA onto a card or to put your DNA and information all into a chip underneath your skin.
Who owns it?
Yeah, who owns that point?
Right.
Is it the company that provides it? Is it the company that provides it? The government that owns it, or is it you that then owns that card for using it on the property?
You would always own your own DNA.
I go back to I'd own my own clone then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, look,
onto the process that doesn't happen. Because
Ogre, your argument is compelling. The fact that you would own your own DNA and therefore the work product of your DNA. That's what we're really talking about.
And in the end, boys, I think that this is the most important thing: is that brilliant minds come together. And I wouldn't include myself in this, but I'm definitely amongst my betters here. And as I listen to this conversation,
your betters, where? Point them out.
Oh yeah, we all know it's you, Magic Bollox, and Common Sense. We can see him. Everybody can see him here. And I tell you, for anyone that's out there, very briefly, Common Sense Guy and I love to argue. So if we seem to get wrapped up in the part, don't be pussies, everybody. We're not. So just relax.
We love each other, really.
When are you guys gonna get a room? Get a room.
Well, sometimes it's the idea of really game debates. Well, the idea of really game debates has gone so far by the wayside that when people really get in it and get going, sometimes I don't know. People can, Anyway, that was my disclaimer.
To make a little parentheses along those same lines, for me, it's just so enjoyable to have this kind of argument, okay? Because it's an argument, quote unquote, but for fun, okay? And each of us is putting up ideas, and trying to reason through a given situation that we're positing, right? And of course, we want to one up one another because we're all a little bit competitive, and we all have our that's perfectly natural.
Are you saying that we're all men?
Yeah. Yes. Shocker. Shocker. I know. But the thing that's so enjoyable, okay, it's in the spirit of fun. As far as I'm concerned, we're just fooling around, which is fun, and if it's not fun, then why bother?
Well, and maybe someone will come across this video in 15 years when it's actually happening and be like, look at these old sages here, and maybe that is funny, right? I just want to ask, is it possible before we go to maybe just at least get your opinion? And Common Sense, I didn't even ask him. He's probably going to choke me to death when he sees me. But to get your opinion on the memo, Coach, not right this second, but maybe you can.
I read it. I read it.
So maybe before the end, because everybody's chomping, and Common Sense Guy and I and Bollox, we usually do like a straight up news show. And everybody's just chomping. I've gotten about 10 messages, and everybody's like, "You got Coach Red Pill on there. You're not going to ask about the memo." So anyway, that's it. I hope you didn't mind that I asked that Common Sense.
No, it's fine. I think it was perfect. I think we come to a natural end anyway. So if Coach Red Pill, if you'd like to take it away, and we'll carry on from your points.
Sure. Okay, so the memo. Wait, I'm trying to find it real quick. Talk amongst yourselves while I find it, because I had it.
I have a link here too if you need it.
Oh yeah, if you could put it in the link there on the group chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just realized that I downloaded it, so now I'm gonna have to go. But I will find it very quickly here. No, I'll find it. I find it. Mad Dodge. This is from Mad Dodge Productions. He sent this to me a little bit earlier.
No, in fact, I have it right here. Actually,
you got it.
Wait.
Yeah, that's fine.
Got it.
And if not, I'm going to set it in the side chat just in case. Boom. This is for everyone else.
Yeah, and put it on the live. Yeah, on the live chat. Put it on the live chat.
Go around right now.
Okay, so there were 5 points in the memo. Okay, now do keep in mind this memo was written by the majority staff on the House panel on the
Republicans.
the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Okay,
Intelligence, yes.
Yeah.
and it was the majority staffers report. The majority, of course, being Republican. Okay, ultimately Nunes was the guy in charge of this. Okay, and there were 5 points. Okay. What's the basic story? Okay, the basic story is quite simple. This individual, Carter Page, who is aide associate of the Trump candidacy, it was suspected that he might be a Russian agent or somehow colluding with the Russian government. That was the idea of the FBI, and the FBI, of course, went to FISA court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act courts, the special courts, secret courts that were set up to authorize the surveillance, the domestic surveillance of somebody whom the U.S. intelligence services, FBI, security services, FBI, CIA, NSA might think are foreign intelligence operatives or terrorist agents of some sort. Okay, it was part of the Patriot Act, right? Okay, so Carter Page was the target of the FBI. Now, why was Carter Page targeted? Because the FBI presented this dossier compiled by Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier. Remember last year, in like September of last year, they were all talking about, this dossier that alleged that Donald Trump hired a couple of hookers to pee on
the piss dossier is what we call it here. The piss dossier.
The piss dossier, right? Exactly. For anybody who's listening hasn't heard of it, well, so yeah, it was all kinds of stupid shit. Right? Okay, it's just ridiculous. Okay, now here's the 5 bullet points of the memo. Okay, number 1, and I'll read it quickly and just scan it for you. The dossier compiled by Christopher Steele on behalf of the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign formed an essential part of the Carter Page FISA application. This is indisputably true. Steele was a longtime FBI source who was paid over $160,000 by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign via the law firm Perkins Cole and research firm Fusion GPS to obtain derogatory information on Donald Trump's ties to Russia. Okay, so there's the dossier. That's point number 1. Now, point number 2. The Carter Page FISA application, that is the warrant to bug him and get all of his communication, cell phone, intercept, everything. The Carter Page FISA application also cited extensively a Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, okay, which focused on Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow. Here's the point. This and the underlying point. This article by Michael Isikoff does not corroborate the Steele dossier because it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Michael Isikoff. Okay, so that's the key thing. This is important, okay, because it turned out that the FBI took both the Steele dossier and the Yahoo News article written by Michael Isikoff and presented them both to the FISA court. Okay, saying, okay, we've got this dossier by this credible informant that we've had, Christopher Steele. And on the other hand, there's this article written by Michael Isikoff for Yahoo News that says pretty much the same stuff. So therefore, on the strength of these 2 pieces of evidence, give us the warrant on Carter Page. And the problem, of course, which is being revealed here in the memo, is that, these 2 pieces of information, the Yahoo News Isikoff story and the Steele dossier, they came from the same source, Christopher Steele. And Christopher Steele was a paid agent of the DNC and of the Clinton campaign. And on top of that, he made the shit up. And here's the key issue. The key issue, okay? The key issue on 3 is that, they knew that he had made the shit up. That's the problem. They knew before they went to the FISA court that it was either made up or it was bullshit. Because
Coach, you seem to know a little bit about this, and you're on 3 now. And if I may jump to 3A, I would really like to know what you think about this, because of course 3 says before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with the Department of Justice. It goes down to a black part in quotes. It says that Steele told this to this Orr, and Orr agreed.
Yeah, that he Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against then kind of when Steele said he. Steele said.
Yeah, he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him being not being president, and that he had this plan B in case he did. And then this is the thing that kills me. Maybe I really want someone that knows more about this than I to touch on this. 3A. During this same time period, Orr, who was the senior DOJ official and Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. During the same time, Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the FISA court. Of everything in here, this nepotism and whatnot seems horrible.
Yeah, that's it for Orr. Orr is over. Orr can go to jail. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, Orr can go to jail. Rosenstein, Yates, Orr for sure. All these people are likely going to get fired. I think that Rosenstein is the one that Trump really wants to get rid of.
Mm-hmm. He's already said that basically.
Yeah, and this is a huge black eye for the DNC and the Clinton campaign, and for the Obama Department of Justice. This is unconscionable. Okay, I mean, this never should have gone this far. I mean, they lost their heads. What do you guys think?
Well, I was just about to ask you a quick question, because I know what I think about how damaging this is. What would your assessment of the Democrats' damage that's been caused to this? The fact that they've literally basically tried to rig an election and tried their best to try and destroy the credibility of somebody that was running as a presidential election. Electorate.
I actually think that it's going to get muddy, and people are going to say, "Oh, there's some scandal going on." Okay, I mean, I think that this is not clear-cut enough. Okay, I mean, we read it, okay, and we realize we connect the dots easily, but there are a lot of dots, and there are enough dots that you can throw up a lot of dirt, and people will get the wrong idea. I mean, look, to be, just to mention the elephant in the room, in my own case, I got into a street fight with Sargon of Akkad, and there was enough dots between himself and him doxing me that a lot of dirt was thrown my way, and it totally clouded the issue. It poisoned the well, and a lot of people have an idea about me that is totally unreal, but it's enough dirt, enough of a cloud, of dirt thrown up in the air to sort of like obscure what's really going on. Frankly, I look at this and I pretty much see the same thing, that there's just so many connect the dots, okay? Because it's not Hillary Clinton told this guy to fuck over Trump. It's not that clear. It's like, seconds and assistant attorney generals and the wife of the guy, and it's like a daisy chain. Okay, and the problem with that is that it becomes very hard to pin one person. Responsibility becomes diffused. Okay, so I think that pretty much is going to happen here.
Can I ask a question? Hasn't Hillary Clinton already stated many times before that she knows what goes on completely and utterly in her organization? She knows everything that goes on,
except this stuff, except the illegal stuff.
Well, the reason why I put that out there is because of an obvious point. If she says that she knows everything that goes on, doesn't that hold her accountable? Considering she's
didn't you hear what I just said? That she knows everything that's going on except those things that are illegal.
Yeah, just like she said, wipe the server, Common Sense guy. What, with a cloth? You know who she is. She's a lying piece of
I know. But that's the reason why I was saying that the dots can be connected, because she's already stated beforehand that she has done this. Now, I'm with all of you guys.
But then, okay, look, imagine, she says that. Okay, I'm Hillary Clinton. I know everything going on in my campaign. Oh,
shut the fuck up, bitch. Die. Sorry, you said you were Hillary Clinton.
Hey, I second that.
Yeah, but I'm telling you.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Is not going to touch her, okay? It's going to touch all these other people. And I think indirectly it'll affect Mueller. Okay, because I think that Mueller is feeling the heat, because he's not named here, but he's all over this
No,
shit.
but he's implied. But hey, coach, what about Donna Brazil? I mean, she's already come out and wrote this book. I mean, she may be the unhinged daggone lady that comes out all butthurt and just blabs it. She knows what went on because she's already talked about the muckamucks in Brooklyn or wherever in New York, the people that were in control of all this money that she raised. And she's pissed, man. All it takes is one loose lip to sink this shit, brother.
Yeah. And also, I think that Donna Brazil is calculating correctly that if she plays her cards right, she can get some sort of immunity deal.
And come out clean on the other side.
Spill the beans and come out, if not exactly clean, but at least, not in jail.
Yeah, no prison.
Yeah.
How do you think this will actually work for the Dems in the primaries this year?
In the midterms, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, midterms. Yeah,
midterms.
Yeah,
no, they're gonna get fucked. They're gonna get fucked. Like just. I mean, it's just gonna be like something horrible. It's gonna be like a horny farmhand and a very, very lonely chicken.
Why chickens? Can't be sheep, huh? He must have watched my video.
He's not Welsh. That's why he's not Welsh.
He's not Welsh. I'll tell you, man. This is going to be not only that, but the Democrats were dying anyway. This midterm was going to be hell. Look what they did to Roy Moore. I'm not even saying, I don't really know. I just know that now that Roy Moore is not running anymore, he's not going to jail. Nobody's pushing it. He reminds me of Bill Clinton's black son. Hell, I can't even remember the poor kid's name, because what they do is every time a Clinton is doing something, you got Alex Jones and Roger Stone and some of these other guys that I kind of like, but I don't like some of their methods. They dredge up this poor black kid from Little Rock, Arkansas, whose dad is obviously Bill Clinton. You can look, I hate to say it this way, but you look at that kid, it's like, damn.
Yeah.
That's Bill Clinton, just black. That's the same team. I mean, that's Bill Clinton. And so, and then when it's all over, it's just back to the closet with you, nigger. We don't need you no more. It's the same with this stuff. It's to these people, we're all a load of niggers and kikes and spicks and whops and fuck all clones that don't have no rights. This is how they do us.
Well, here's the thing that I think that about the 2018 midterms. Okay, 2 points. The first one is that the identity politics shit is just simply not working, but they're going to play that card again, and they're going to lose the popular, because people are sick and tired of the shit.
Definitely.
Okay, they're sick and tired of the shit. They're sick and tired of feminism. They're sick and tired of the whole notion of social justice. Where everybody's a victim.
I like social justice.
Oh,
sorry, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, and the other point that the first person I ever heard pointed out was Styx Hexenhammer 666, who's a sharp customer, and he pointed out that most of the Senate seats going up for re-election are Democrat seats, and a lot of them are weak. He calculated that 6 of those seats were weak enough to be lost by the Democrats. And, it's a third of the Senate that's going up. What is that? 34 Senate seats. And I think it was 18 that were Dems. And of those 18, 6 were kind of like up for grabs. And the Republican Senate, the senators who were going up for re-election, all but 1 were safe seats. So, no way are they going to the Democrats pick up a majority in the Senate. It's just mathematically not going to happen.
Man, what about Gowdy? Gowdy's leaving. I hate to just like blister that on this, but it seems to go with a little bit. Gowdy's not going to seek re-election.
Which one's Gowdy?
Trey Gowdy. He's the chair of the oversight committee. He's also, Trey Gowdy is the blonde guy from South Carolina that grilled Hillary so hard. Him and Jason Chaffetz used to be like the dynamic duo, and Jason Chaffetz quit because he couldn't afford it. It's a long story, but anyway, so it doesn't matter. Just forget about that because it doesn't matter. Just get back on this. I shouldn't even ask. I thought you'd jump on that.
No. Because the thing is, I haven't been following like the specifics of the senators for quite a while. I've been just following numbers because for years now they're just voting party lines. There's no real ideological differences within the parties, and there's no willingness to cross party lines. There used to be, and therefore, in the 80s, I remember, in the 90s, there was more of a willingness to cross party lines, and therefore, it was necessary for you to know which senator thought what about the different issues. But now, it's party lines, so who gives a fuck? It's whichever party's in charge.
I'd have to slightly disagree with that, only on the point of not on the numbers.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely correct on the numbers.
Mhm.
But just on the way that, for instance, the speech that Trump did yesterday, so many people were coming out and saying, the Democrats, why aren't they standing for actually him doing something good for America? Not all the points, obviously,
Sure.
but why aren't you even clapping for like black unemployment being the lowest it's ever been and stuff like that? And so
But I think he's
people
talking about the Oh, I'm sorry. I think Coach is talking about the politicians, though. Common sense, I think. So, in other words, when you looked at that, you see that the demos were like.
He was saying that people were doing the party lines. That's what I was meaning. That people are seeing that, and people are going to go across, and they're actually going to change party lines because they're going to look at the Democrats and go, "Well, if you're not going to be happy that America are doing well, then I'm not going to vote for you."
Exactly. And that's SJW shit.
Exactly.
And that's just not flying, you know. And
well, I tell you the most brilliant thing in that whole speech was when Trump mentioned that that unemployment among black people was at the lowest ever in recorded history, and then it showed the Black Democratic Caucus, and there's this one lone black dude there, and he's like he said it, he's clapping, and then you see him looking around like, why ain't you brothers clapping? Why you didn't hear what he just said? You're gonna go clap for that one? That was brilliant.
Well, the thing that I absolutely found disgusting was the fact that when he was talking about those two families, the two black families that had their son die, I can't remember for the particular reason, and I'm sorry, but everybody was clapping because of like obviously them having a particular story. Democrats wouldn't even get up and clap them people, let alone just because Trump said it. That's how bad the Democrats were in that place. They wouldn't clap once, not even for people. Even for the Korean person that was able to come across and was able to do the, you know, with his what do you call it, crutches. The Democrats still didn't. The Democrats still didn't clap him.
Common sense. I had to go back and rewatch that because for me, it was for a farmer. It was late, and I was kind of nodding in and out. But you mentioned that. You said he was waving his crutches around. I went back and looked at that. Anyway, Ronald Reagan started that mess, so we can thank him for the whole everybody up in the First Lady's box. You know, you got a bunch of people in the First Lady's box. I don't like the phrasing on that, but if it's Melania, I wouldn't mind being in the First Lady's box. But you know, Mrs. Reagan, just say no. Oh,
just say no. Just say no.
Oh, I got to say this. What would be the end game then, Coach? Because we're talking about, and I guess I misunderstood you because you said people were along party lines. I don't see that because of where I am. I'm way up in the middle of Michigan, and I don't get to see a lot of folks. So when you have a party that is doing the identity politics, the race baiting, all that, what's the end game for them? How could they, if you could play devil's advocate, how could they possibly win? How could they get out of this tailspin they're in?
Oh, they can't. They can't. Okay. The only thing I think that could get them to straighten up and fly right is actually, I think, something even more disturbing than the current situation is that they turn harder left. You know, that they turn like really hard left, like socialist Bernie bro, all the way lefty socialist. You know, that kind of wouldn't be
Labour Party type.
No, but like a real, you know, not like no fooling around, like socialists, and calling themselves socialists.
The Labour Party do that, by the way, now.
Yeah, because I think that look, this is my thinking, and do keep in mind that I am a man of the right when I say this. Neoliberalism has run its course, and we're seeing the excesses of neoliberalism, and we can all agree that both the Democrats and the Republicans are neoliberalist in terms of economic policy. And they don't, you know, say boo to one another insofar as economic policy, right? It's just who can cut taxes quicker. And my thinking is that neoliberal economic policy is what neoliberal economic policies excesses, which we are living with today, have caused a lot of the problems we currently have. Specifically, they outsourced employment. They prioritize corporate profits over social well-being. It has created an oligarchic class which is out of control. It really is running riot. And do keep in mind, I am a conservative. I'm a man of the right. grew up in Chile. I know about socialist, Marxist, communist, Leninist regimes because they almost put one in Chile, and I know the effects firsthand. Because I wasn't even in Chile at the time, and I would have been too young anyway. But so many people told me things that they witnessed and saw, and their daily life struggles under the Marxist socialist regime of Salvador Allende. That I've always been anti-communist, and as I got older and got into Russian history, ironically enough, I became even more anti-socialist, anti-Marxist.
That's your specialty, isn't it? Russian
Yeah,
history.
it is. Yeah, it is actually. But the point I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to put up my bona fides as being an anti-communist when I say that neoliberal economic policies have not only run their course, they are hurting our societies.
Good God, yes.
And we have to pull back. And I insist, I'm not like some fucking hippy dippy trippy loser, who wants to walk around in sandals and give everybody basic income or some shit like that. Okay.
Sandals are so comfortable.
What?
Sandals are so comfortable.
Oh, you're wearing sandals, you goddamn commie.
Only Birkenstocks, man. I only wear Birkenstocks while I smoke pot.
Oh God, another commie. Oh God, what are we gonna do with you people? No, kidding aside, I'm against the Bismarckian welfare state. I think it should be eliminated because I think that the state should not be in the business of what properly belongs to families and private charities. Okay, but look, be that as it may, neoliberalism is the problem. It outsourced industries for the benefit of raising corporate profits. And so, yeah, sure, you had this productivity boom, quote unquote, because you outsourced all the businesses because of the free movement of capital and lowering tariffs. So you sent the factory from Akron, Ohio to Shanghai, China. And, you're paying your workers, a fraction of what you were paying them in Akron, right? And you're getting the goods back. And so the goods are cheaper, than they were before, and you can sell them at a lower price, and more consumers in the States get more consumer goods. But you are losing the manufacturing base. You are losing employment, dignified employment for people, and you have reduced the manufacturing, and you've created this service economy. But the service economy is really a very a very weak economy, is subject to any kind of one good shove, and most people are going to be in the poorhouse. Do you know that 70% of people cannot rustle up $1,000 for an emergency expense? They do not have the wherewithal to rustle up $1,000 for an emergency. And think about how insane that is. Okay, no. I think that neoliberalism has brought us a lot of material prosperity, but it has hollowed out our society, and it has made material prosperity the be-all end-all when there's more to life than just material prosperity. There's the sense of the human sense of having a mission and a purpose in life, insofar as your development and your growth and the work that you do every day.
Damn right.
Yeah, I mean, look at us. Look at us here. Okay, we are fortunate enough that we have this hobby of ours that gives us enormous satisfaction. Yep. And so we do this hobby, and we might get some money out of it. Yay, great. But the thing is, see, it gives us a purpose, a goal, a direction. And that is what a human being needs. But our society has reduced us all into these consumer units, these units that consume, And that's something that I'm deeply opposed to, because a man, a woman is more than just the sum of his consumption or her consumption, But, and I think that neoliberalism was extremely beneficial in pulling the Western democracies out of the doldrums of the 70s and 80s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I think that they were catastrophic because well, it's cyclical. Okay, you go up, you go down, the society changes. Okay, but what's happened is that this Washington consensus, whereby everybody pretty much agrees across party lines on economic policy, but it's the economic policies that are hurting the country in the long run, and we are seeing that now. if you guys disagree, jump in and knock me down.
No. I mean, other people can jump in. I just got to say, Coach, it seemed like you must be in, and I don't care. I mean, I know I purposely don't look at some things. You mentioned some things earlier. I was going to ask some silly questions, and maybe once we get to know you, me and Bollox will have some silly questions to ask you about some things about Kilroy, but we don't know you well enough. Maybe you take it the wrong way because some funny shit happened. But you know what? To let things cloud and to fog up, you must have been doing this. And I only mentioned that other stuff because I don't want you to think I'm not trying to dox you. I don't care who you are, other than you're kind enough to come by Common Sense Guy's channel on our show that we've been working on for a year.
Exactly.
That's all we care about. But you know what, man? You must have been doing this analysis a little while. And not only do I agree with you, the biggest problem that I see these days is that to tell people that they're entitled to free education and that everybody should get an education. No. We were the smartest country in the world when about 15% of us went to university, because those are the ones that should go. And should some of the other ones go? Yes. But some people should go now that don't get to go. You can never create equality. But what was so poignant to me was, listen, I'm for the most part retired. Mrs. Ogre works because she loves it. I don't have to do anything. I could sit here, play my guitar, play my drums. That is ignorant. That is stupid. That is lazy. That is nothing. I go cut wood. I do things. I make sure I have a boiler. Again, I could have gas put in here and I could but no, I have it set up. So if I do not, and why? If I don't have a purpose, if I wake up every morning and sip my coffee until it's reasonable enough time to drink my beer, and that's all I do, which I've tried, you waste away and you become nothing. I'm telling you this from experience, folks. And look, maybe I'll tell you all about it in my final word, because the Common Sense, I don't know, man. I just told Coach Red Pill, and I'm not sure. This is Common Sense Guy's channel. We do this so long together that I will forget. And Common Sense Guy, forgive me tonight if I have jumped in and directed things a little much. I'm so used to it, mate. But it's so thank you. Thank you for doing this on your channel. It's a nice break to have you and Bollox to take over once in a while. It's a great thing. But that's it, Coach Red Pill. Yes, we need a purpose. That is the greatest thing in life, to have a purpose. Whether it's cutting wood, washing dishes for your wife or your husband, raising the children for your husband, hopefully, or whatever, to have a purpose, to do something good. That's what matters.
Exactly. I'd just like to add to your point by throwing in a little bit from Only Fools and Horses and using my own catchphrase that I use quite a bit. Only Fools and Horses was obviously the point of Del Boy and Rodney trying to get the millions that they always wanted, to be millionaires. The point of my little escapade is saying that when they actually got the millions, they weren't actually happy, to the point where they lost the money and they were happy going back to their flat in Peckham after buying it and doing what they did before. So this is the point where I always use my catchphrase. People are only happy in the pursuit of happiness, never when they attain it.
Damn right.
That's right. Yeah. It's the chase. That's the fun bit. When you get there, you suddenly realize you've done it, and then what do you do next?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's coming up to about quarter two. Generally, we normally do a form of a last word or a wrap up or something. It can be about anything that you want. I don't know, and I've only literally just sprung this on you, so I don't know if you will want to go first or not, Coach Red Pill.
I prefer to be in the middle of the pack.
Oh, okay, because we strongly recommend that you go first because you're low man on the totem pole. So what I have to say, if I may, Common Sense, because he talks good common sense. Don't be too easy on this guy. What I will say is that if you would like to be in the middle pack, it will be on Magic Bollox to say, well, surely have my go, but you can't have mine. I speak my word before Common Sense Guy.
That's fine.
No,
Bollocks.
No, I'm fine. What's good? You know me. I normally come out with a lot of shit anyway. So, but are we wrapping up yet? Is there anything else we want to ask?
Well, you guys were talking about. You wanted to bring up the Kilroy thing. I've been watching.
I prefer to save that for another stream because generally we only stream 2 hours.
Can I?
Coach, you've been all over the place. Look how nice this flowed. We went all over. We did the clone thing. We got a little segue. We popped onto another sub. You know, if we go into that, and we do keep it 2 hours, but Bollox, what?
Can I just ask Coach one thing before we do wrap up?
Shoot.
Sure.
Because I agree with you, yes, that neoliberalism is being, well, it's not ended yet, obviously, but I agree with you, it's had its day. What do you think is a good economic model that we can move on to that will be in better usage for the ordinary people and not just the 1% this time?
That's a really good question, because you should always be picturing the champagne room before you go do anything. You know, whatever it is that you want to, you have to picture, well, what would be the ideal champagne room, the end of the road. And I've given it some thought, and my thinking is as follows. Of course, this is just a hypothetical. There's a Catholic philosophy that was developed by G.K. Chesterton called distributism. I haven't done enough research on it yet. I'm going to, but from the outlines, it seems like it's more or less what I'm thinking, which is a highly decentralized capitalism, whereby the emphasis by the government is to decentralize every market, decentralize and make smaller. If a smaller unit can do some task, then foment and create the circumstances so that the smaller economic unit can do that task, so that there is no division between capital and labor. Because G.K. Chesterton developed the notion that to fight communism, you had to fight the original distinction that they made, the distinction between capitalists and labor. If you make it so that the labor is the owner of the capital, and yet he is independent, you know, the small town, the small village, the small shop, the small factory, perhaps not so efficient, but perhaps less efficiency, but greater participation by the workers would lead to greater satisfaction to the society overall. Because what we want is to have a happy society where people feel that every day is worthwhile, that they are doing something that belongs to them. They are not alienated from their work, and they are doing something directly to contribute to their own happiness and to contribute to the society that surrounds them. I always think of, like, this is going to sound weird, but the Swiss countryside, because I have to go to Switzerland often on business, and I often wind up taking the train from Zurich to Geneva, and sort of like back and forth, and you pass through beautiful, beautiful countryside. And I've gone there in every season, and every season it's different and beautiful, but you see constantly these little villages, these little towns tucked away, and they're like their own independent little units. Okay. Now I've had the opportunity to cross America by car, and I saw so many towns that were just empty, you know, that they had once been small, thriving little towns, and they'd been just decimated. The downtowns, quote unquote, there were no shops because a couple of miles away there was a big old Walmart, right? Well, that Walmart should be demolished, and the little shops should be reopened with the mom and pop store and the corner diner, and maybe it's more expensive and less efficient. Okay, but see, in the end of the day, there's more to life than just efficiency and making money. Sometimes, the inefficiencies create meaning and value in a life. And yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You're thinking maybe a sort of move into like a mutual sort of system where instead of having everything centralized, you'll have many different, decentralized. So you'll have more communities running their own sort of
exactly
areas, and basically they're in charge of their own destinies.
Hey, common sense is thinking it. So this is both you lads' last word.
Yeah. And like devolution of power from central authority, Washington, Fort Meade, the New York media centers, devolution of that power to the center, to spread the butter around the whole country, not just on the coasts. You see what I mean?
So in
smacks
summary,
a bit of communism to me.
Well, no, I was going to say, in summary, actually, it sounds more like the whole potential idea of proper capitalism without any.
In a lot of ways. Because I like the idea of smashing the Walmart, right? Common sense. But what do you mean by proper capitalism? Because that made me want to talk for another hour. What he just said. In a lot of ways, I loved what he was saying, but when I thought about it, it started making me hurt inside.
Well, the reason why I think that it's a form of proper capitalism is the fact that you're giving power to the person, and the person is done by the labor that that person creates, and no government is telling that person what that labor is created for. That's the pure and simple definition of capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, because the definition of capitalism is definitely not to have the Detroit Lions say they need a new stadium, therefore the taxpayers pay a shitload of the money for it, or even worse, to have Walmart or the Dollar General that just built a Dollar General in my little tiny town, man. I can't believe they let them do it. They didn't ask us either. They should have asked us to vote on it, Coach. No, I mean, I would say that this is the problem. They shouldn't necessarily smash them down, but they should have one vote, and it shouldn't be able to be voted on at least for 5 years. I'd say a decade. So in other words, come to the people. Do you want a Walmart here? Nay. If the nays got it, you can't even ask again. You can't just keep asking until they get other people to buy houses, which is what they did here for another thing, for water, for local water. But
anyway, it's what the EU does generally as well, like they did with Ireland.
Because I believe in the natural order of things. And I was just talking to the guy at the gas station today. He was seriously thinking about selling some of us locals for $5, a little sticker that will let him know that we're locals, and we'd pay 50 cents less a gallon during the summertime. During the summertime, because we're a summer town here. We get townies come up from Detroit and Saginaw and Flint, Michigan and Grand Rapids. They ain't never seen a deer in their life. They ain't never. Oh God, have mercy on my soul. They should pay. They should pay 10 times what they do. The bastards, every one of them. And they should not let their kids drink and drive their motherfucking ski things on the lake when people are trying to fish either, or they should be shot.
Shoot the tourists! Shoot the tourists!
Sorry about that tirade. Hey, Coach, man, if I don't get a chance to say it before it's all over, and I've got to go soon, Common. If we don't go soon, I will just have to go. I've got chores I have to do on the farm. But if I don't get a chance to say it, Coach, I got to say, man, you got a bad rap, baby. You were second to none. I'm not going to lie to you. I put you right in a category with Oozaloo on the offensive and Wild Smile. Those are some young kids. I put you in the top 5 list is what I'm telling you. Of guests that we've had, you were second to none, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's that's really kind of you to say. Thank you. I have had so much fun on this. You have no idea, because like arguing with you about the clone thing. Yeah, you were like, oh damn, man, he's got me. It was so satisfying.
We'll have you back with the Kilroy stuff, but let me tell you get back 2 or 3 times, you'll grow to hate magic. Not magic balls. I said that Common Sense Guy and I, we are very argumentative, and we do like to get down and dirty. If you didn't notice that tonight.
Oh, but it comes from clearly a point of affection and respect. Okay, so that's like totally different.
Well, but that's to us, but not to you. I mean, if we were arguing with you, we'd just be cussing your ass and trying to I don't know you very well, but you're a good guest.
I'd love to be on again. I'd love to be on again. If you guys will have me, please. Yes,
I definitely would have you on again to talk about anything, not necessarily about drama. We'd have you on again, whatever.
Yeah. No.
Okay, so
Wednesday though, if you're free Wednesday, or let me know some Wednesday in the next month if you're free. I would like to have you on to give whatever happened to you about the thing that you mentioned that we won't talk about right now, because I do know Base Mama very well. I used to work with her. She used to be a member of our clergy here at church, and but I don't say much about it. We're not a drama channel. I want to make that clear. It would not be a Andy Worski scenario. We don't do that. We just talk about facts and about things that have happened on a smaller degree, in that case of a Medicare kind of thing. We
don't do drama, but fuck me, we'll take his super chats any day.
Yeah. You know what I mean? We'll talk about shit that'll get us paid.
That's a point, actually. You lot in the chat, you tight.
Did I mention I'm
giving
Jewish?
Us anything tonight?
I'm not sure if I told you, Coach Red Pill, I'm Jewish, and you already know that means I'll do damn near anything but blow you for money. That's almost where I'm at.
And on that notice, Magic Bollocks, take over. Let's have our last word so I can fuck off.
Right. All right, everybody. Interesting little chat tonight. Thank you, Coach, for coming on and bringing some very interesting ideas to the table. In terms of cloning, from my own point of view, I really don't want it to happen because it's against all my principles. I think the more you fuck about with nature, the more nature comes back to bite you on the arse. If people want to have designer babies and all that, that's their choice. It'll just end up fucking them up in some way or another, and they fully deserve it. In terms of the memo, I'm glad it's happened. I hope that the special interests that fund and control the DNC and the Clintons and the Bushes and everybody else who's involved get a thorough good thrashing from the alternative media, which is ourselves, which is anybody on the center to right, or even the libertarians who, well, traditional libertarians who actually prefer the truth rather than putting feelings before facts. And I also want to put a special mention to Common Sense for running a very good tight ship tonight. His channel is definitely getting better. As you can see, his subscribers is growing, and he is becoming a more serious member of the team. Mr. Ogre is, of course, the jolly giant of the three of us, the personality that will always shine through. And as for me, on certain nights, as you notice, I will go into the background a little bit so the serious discussion can go on. But on a Wednesday, it is my shout. It is a complete clusterfuck of a stream. Please join us. It is ridiculous. It's stupid. It's immature, and it's bloody good fun. And that is an invite to anybody who wants to come along. As for now, thank you, chat. Thank you for keeping it all lively as usual. Nothing too emotional, I don't think. Even though Cabby did turn up, he didn't have his usual mental breakdown. And and to everybody else, I bid you a very good night. Thank you very much.
It's funny. He struck our same funny boat at the same time. And I'm going to make this very brief. Common Sense Guy has been more than kind. We're supposed to do a 2-hour show. We're rapidly approaching 2 hours and 2 minutes. So I'm just going to say this. Be very careful of your own mind, because I'm the one that wants a clone so I can harvest its organs. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe, maybe not. The wonderful thing is when you get peers together that can discuss it. And I have to say tonight, I was honored to be with two gentlemen that seemed like they had very thick skin. And those are the ones that I love. I do believe that Snub Nub, in other words, reality's temple on earth, and Coach Red Pill, I humbly say myself, not so much Common Sense Guy yet. Give him another few months. We get bad raps. People hear what we say, and they don't listen to what we say. They see Common Sense Guy, bloke's freaking, I can't remember the stone. Was he 14 or 15 stone? Big bloke, big old guy. Oh, he can't have a heart. He can't be kind to animals because he's a big giant of a guy. He can't possibly have anything smart to say because he looks like he can throw you 5 feet before your toes touch the ground. Don't judge it. Not only don't judge a book by its cover, but Coach made a good point tonight. Connect the dots. If you're going to look at things that have a lot of dots, make two choices. Are you going to be a sycophant? Are you going to be a fool? Are you going to be a flim flam? You're going to be a matchstick? You're going to be nothing? You're going to be a floop and a flame and just follow the herd? Well, then you can do that. You can be happy doing that. That's fine. But if you want to be a true independent thinker, look at things. I found out tonight that I believe we could have Coach Red Pill back on, and that it could be a good old time. Maybe we could get into some things that aren't drama about Kilroy, but some things that Common Sense Guy and him were talking about, and maybe you don't talk about these things, and find out that Coach, stand-up guy, not a pussy, Common Sense Guy, he can hold his own. Remember, folks, be good to everybody you know. They're going to be gone before you know it.
Thank you very much for that, Ogre. Very well said again. I don't really have too much to say today, apart from obviously thank you very much to Coach Red Pill. I don't know why he left. It's probably more of a case that I said that we were leaving and he probably thought that we were leaving. So I don't think it's anything bad or anything. But I would like to take the opportunity to actually thank him because obviously me and him have had our little run-ins on Twitter and our run-ins on video and things like that where I've been taking pot shots at him. I'm not going to hide away from that. But generally, I know that maybe some people have bad pasts or perceived bad pasts. I'm not one to judge on that point. I'm only judging on the character that's in front of the person at this moment in time. And I have to say that my opinion of Coach Redpill has changed dramatically to the point where I'm quite happy to have him on again. I'm quite happy to be able to talk to him properly. I'm very, very happy about that. I think that he's actually a genuine bloke. I don't think he's actually changed to the point where people have called him different names and things like that. I actually really like him. I think he's a good bloke, to be fair. So with that, normally I would say goodbye, but I'd just seen that Coach Redpill has popped back. So
I think he planned it, mate. He planned it, but yeah, he's here.
Hey, Common Sense guy, I'll do the PayPal payment, but you got to give me the address. You know,
it's linked in the description, my friend. It's linked in the description box.
you don't believe that propaganda. He just no.
Yeah. Marketing, man, marketing. Ogre, you got to learn marketing. You know. Thank you. That's incredibly generous. I mean, I caught that you were saying nice things about me, and I'm like, oh, geez, thank you. You know, I have.
Well, you're in a unique position. You got 2 minutes. When you're done, Common Sense Guy may say goodbye, but you just caught the end of his final word, our very sacred, sacrosanct final thing that we do. So go.
Yep.
Me?
Yeah. Carry on, please.
Okay. I just want to say that this is the kind of arguments that I like having, where you're arguing about something intellectually stimulating that opens up new avenues of thinking. I personally really, really like it when, for instance, like Ogre, like, showed me up on the issue of like how a clone belongs to you as a product of you. And so therefore you should treat it as like, just like a pet or whatever. And viscerally, I was like outraged, and intellectually it stimulated me because it puts the onus on me to come up with a good reason to dispute what he's saying, because what Ogre was saying was just, it was sound logic. And this is the kind of argument that I want to have. And I thank you very much that you were kind enough to host me and allow me to participate in this group. I joined, frankly, on a lark, and I'm so glad that I did, because it's something that I just had such a wonderful time, and I hope you guys won't mind if I show up again and at some point in the future, because it was just so much fun to be arguing something, aggressively as best you can, and yet in a clearly good-natured spirit, whereby the issue isn't to win and score points on somebody else, but rather to find the truth. And even when the truth is not found, interesting avenues of exploration are discovered. And I just have to say that thank you so much. This conversation, these past couple of hours have meant a lot to me.
No worries. Cheers. Thank you very much for actually coming. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate that quite a lot, because I know that we haven't. Well, I like to say that we haven't, but I think we've had some good discussion even over Twitter and things like that. So I think we've done all right.
It's to tell the truth, on Twitter, I don't even pay attention to who I'm talking to. A lot of times I sort of like swat tweets, like, but in conversations like this, where I hear the person's voice, okay, I see their name and I listen to what they're saying. And I can disagree with them or agree with them, but that's not the point. It's a lot of times you can disagree with somebody vehemently and yet respect them enormously. And sometimes you have people that you agree with 100%, but you're like, oh man, this guy's just not on my level, right? With you guys, it was like, I got to work to keep up, which is just fantastic. It's fun. It's fun, at least for me. And I hope it was for you guys too.
Oh man, hell yeah. Really I can't say much because I know the comments just got to wrap it up. Yes.
Oh yes.
And I am back on Twitter. You feminazis can suck both sides of my asshole.
Why were you off?
I can't talk about that right now. I'll tell you later.
On that note, I bid you farewell. I bid you adieu, and I'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye for now.